I'm back again for you Twitch subscribers. It's twice in one day, so what an epic treat. But I am finally going to talk to you guys about my first campaign. It was quite the doozy. It ran for a little over 2 years. And I'm just gonna go into the history of it real quick and how it happened. So, I work for a local game store, a LGS, and about 2.5 years ago now, the store received a package from Wizards of the Coast, debuting their new one-shot. A lot of people knew that I was into D&D, I played a lot, and I wasn't the only one, but yeah, there were supposed to be 3 of us running these little demo one-shots for the thing, and well, out of happenstance, I just happened to be the one to run my game first, and people liked it and started showing up, and eventually that turned into people asking me, "Hey, are you ever going to run a campaign for the store?" And I said I'd run it by the boss and see what happens, and it ended up getting approved. So I whipped up a campaign with the initial thing of you're going to be playing adventurers, you're going to be running little quests out of this guild hall, all this stuff. It was very isekai inspired at the beginning there. And the way I finally kicked off the campaign was with a little one shot for people to test out their characters. Each of them awoke in a dark, dank crypt, and they were sort of hovering over these piles of ancient bones and soot, and were being resurrected by a lich. The lich told them this, that he was bringing them back to life and marking them because he had a job for them to do. He was apparently the progenitor of a royal family that ruled over the land, and he had grown displeased with the way his descendants had been running things, and he told the resurrected players that their job and the way to earn their freedom was to go out into the world and assassinate his great-grandson, the current ruler. Having no choice but to agree, they were sent out into the world. The one-shot was pretty simple. I dropped them at the capital, practically outside the gate. They formed a plan. They infiltrated. And come to find out, through a little investigating of their own, the king has been typically a just and noble ruler until recent history. Recently, he's been acting kind of off. Well, through some looking around and making a couple of checks, they determined that the king is in fact a warlock, whose patron was the Lich. He had apparently found the Lich's phylactery and had decided to start making some decisions on his own, and that's why the Lich had actually sent the players to off him. They ended up doing battle with the king, and found out that he had made a new pact with a different patron, one of the fiendish variety, right before he was slain. and as his body hit the floor, the Lich appeared. Being true to his word, he released the players from their binds and told them they were free. Right before he took on the guise of the king, declared them traitors, and tried to kill them all by making bones shoot up out of the earth and trying to stab them and kill them. We end up wrapping up that one-shot with them escaping, but with an NPC I had been controlling, staying behind and sacrificing himself so that way they could get away. But before he did so, he gave them information on a guild hall where they could go and get jobs and warn people of the coming disaster about to take place. And that's where we go into the full campaign. The players arrived, new initiates to the guild hall. They had a meeting with the guild master, who took them very seriously, inducted them into the guild, and told them that they would handle things. The overall tone and vibe was very upbeat and kind of lighthearted for the first couple of months there. I wanted the players to feel like they were sort of new rookie recruits to the world. So I was constantly introducing them to these, like, older, more experienced, more powerful NPCs that have, like, slain dragons and saved the world and all this stuff. I wanted to give them a false sense of security, like, oh, we don't need to worry about what's going on in the world. It's fine. Someone else has got it. And all the while, I'm sending them on missions sort of all over the map. Not this map, mind you. A different map. This is an example map. But, yeah, so they would be over here in the capital. And inside the guild hall was this sort of a hallway filled with many, many doors that led to several places all over the continent. And they never knew where they were going to end up one session to the next, but they would just be teleported all around. So they had a lot of fun with that, and eventually they found a black market inside the guild hall itself, where it was just sort of this Diagon alley of shops that were being run by fellow adventurers who were selling off their old gear, things like that. They were having a very wonderful time with that. And all the while I had been dropping hints that the Guildmaster and his party were sort of taking care of the Lich in the background. And occasionally they would be sent on a quest that would be related to what was going on, but in a very minor way. All this eventually began to culminate when they were leveling up and getting more dangerous quests. I do remember one specific one where they were supposed to travel out into the wilderness and lay out this, where they had carved a teleportation circle onto a slab of stone, and they were supposed to plant it in the earth in order to set up a new gateway. And while they were there, they came across two fighting armies. One was fiendish in nature, and the other was undead. And leading the undead army was the NPC that they had met in the little one-shot I had run. They had been taken over, were fully corrupted, and they were essentially a level 20 cleric. And I just wiped the floor with them. They had to make an emergency exit after they got the portal set up and escaped. And that was sort of the, like, oh, something's going on. Maybe everything's not in as control as we think. And so, hearing about this from them, the Guildmaster decides to start sending them all over the continent and beyond, gathering his old party members so that way they could potentially take the fight to the Lich and find out what's going on. Now, I had them sort of doing multiple things where they pop around and meeting the party. It was these just legendary figures. There was a fighter samurai I had, and he had an epic boon that just let him heal Wolverine style once a day. And he had a what was it? The Moonblade, which for those of you who don't know, is a legendary elvish sword that gets more powerful as generations go on. So he had that. They met a Owlin wizard who had such mastery over illusion magic that he convinced them that they were all trapped in a labyrinth and had to complete a series of tests before he agreed to return with them. They met one of the more prominent NPCs who would pop up later on in the campaign, which was Queen Trishana, or Muscle Mommy, as she had been dubbed by the party, because while she was a elven queen in charge of an island called Evermeet, which is in Faerun off the Sword Coast and islands. It's a legendary elvish island that's supposed to be hidden from the world, and there's only elves there. But she was a revolutionary queen who had taken over and was trying to open up Evermeet to the world and finding resistance from her council. So because of all that, and because she had queenly duties, she couldn't return to the Guildmaster's party as their barbarian. Yes, she was a totem barbarian, which is surprisingly fitting for like your badass elven queen. If you guys ever want to do that, feel free. I highly recommend it. It fits very well. But yeah, she had like almost 30 strength, and whenever they were interacting with her, when she was in public, she would try to be this fair elven woman, and then when they were in private, she would just pull a bottle of liquor from somewhere she had stashed it and just be having drinks with them, just very casual. I remember her bedroom had like a bear skin rug and stuff. It was pretty great, and she just had weapons scattered all over the place, and just very what you would expect a barbarian to be like if they had it made. They had a great time with that NPC. But they eventually hit a point in their ally gathering where they were like, okay, we think we've gotten everybody, we're good to go. And then they returned to the guild hall one day. And they are met by an emissary from the BBEG. Come to find out, BBEGs, there were two of them. It turns out the former king of the realm had sold his soul and had gone into the hells after he was slain, and was promoted to a high-ranking devil himself and charged with taking over the material plane as he had claim to it. But first they would have to get rid of the Lich. So first they were approached by him and were asked to join his cause and help him defeat the Lich. And then later on in time, the Lich sent an emissary saying, hey, join with me and we'll destroy the Fiend together, and was promptly rejected. Facing rejection, the two BBEGs decided to team up and go after the guild hall together. And that culminated in the Lich and the Archfiend, as he had become, using their combined powers to raise a undead Tarrasque on the region and destroyed the guild hall. Now bear in mind, the party was like level 5 at the time, so they essentially held up in the guild hall thinking it was safe, and were fending off these attacks from undead and fiends and all this stuff. Meanwhile, the Guildmaster's party, the ones that were there, were out in the streets fighting against the undead Tarrasque, the Lich, the Archfiend, all at once, all just desperately trying to defend their city. And eventually it culminated in the point where the Guildmaster told them to leave. And right as that happened, the Tarrasque arrived at the building, the guild hall, and proceeded to try to eat it and lifted it up in its hefty jaws. Pieces of the building were falling out, the portals that were in there were falling out, and a couple of the party actually was still stuck inside the building while it was being lifted up in the jaws of the Tarrasque. So they desperately escaped and were essentially like free falling, some of them falling into portals, some of them landing in the earth. And yeah, the ones that survived and weren't immediately teleported away got to witness their guildmaster's final stand, where the Lich and the Archfiend teamed up to slay him together. And it was during this combat that a lot of revelations were had. They found out that most of the staff, just like the little errand boys and things like that, were in fact a simulacrum of the guildmaster, who had just been having copies of himself helping everyone out in the day-to-day stuff and just keeping it on the down low. They had a very dramatic moment where one of them was holding one of them as they were dying, and they were just turning into snow, melting as they died. I still get a little shit about that. Apparently I was a little too dramatic with my descriptions. But anyway, ultimately the guildmaster ended up being slain, and it was revealed in full that he was in fact a ascended Eladrin elf, which means he was a archfey. And in his final moments, he made sure everybody was teleported away. And at the end of that session, the players realized that each of them had been teleported all over the continent in various locations, some of them hostile. One of my good friends, Travis, he got teleported into Cholt, which is a tropical island off the coast of Faerun. It is extremely dangerous, and he had to run for his life for a couple of in-game days from a horde of snake people, which was very fun for me. And a couple people wound up in deserts, some of them wound up in the ocean, and just all over, feeling scattered and defeated. And they had to spend, I believe it was 2 months in real-world time coming back together, with their emergency meetup place being the Isle of Evermeet. Yeah. Let me tell you, that was, it was a killer idea. The players had a lot of fun. As many DMs know, if you break the party, it is a colossal headache. And let me tell you, having them scattered across a continent, constantly having to switch back and forth, is a lot of mental gymnastics. And if you aren't 100% prepared for it, I don't recommend it. I got tired of it real quick. But, yeah. Eventually, they did all get back together, and that's when they found out, through their travels and from Queen Trishana, who I spoke of earlier, exactly the state of things. The guild hall was destroyed, the Lich had taken over the capital, and the Archfiend was up in essentially the 10 towns, amassing an army, preparing for a final clash with the Lich. And there they were, defeated and scattered and hopeless. And let me tell you, it was very richly rewarding as a DM to see my players so downhearted and enthralled by the narrative I had woven. And it really let me see who all they were invested in, and it was very rewarding, because only a handful of the NPCs I had introduced to them had survived, and the ones that did were very weakened. It was great. I had a great time with it. But that's about all I've got for today. I hope you guys enjoy this. If you do, I'm going to be posting it on YouTube and a couple of other places. So be sure to like, comment, subscribe, ask me questions. I'll answer them if I can. Yeah. Well, let's roll the dice and see what we get. Tell you what, we'll use the big one, since the last one didn't go so great. That's better. That's an 18. I hope you'll have an 18 of a day. See you next time.